everybody? It's Big Out here from Jersey Shore Car Shows, and I'm here with Peter Curatolo, the Mayor of Lacey Township. And we're going to talk to you a little bit today about how some of these new laws that are coming to affect our hobby, with the electric vehicles, with the new Green Deal, and with Governor Murphy's Energy Master Plan. Peter, welcome to the podcast.
So good to see you, and for what you do for our hobby. You've known me for many years. I'm a car guy, and I'm really glad that you're here in town, and I'm glad and very happy to talk about this with you for a little while.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I mean, one of the things that really stuck out to me recently was last month Dodge announced that the Hellcat and the Charger, they're doing away with it in 2023. And the reason? They're moving to electric vehicles, and they're looking at making now what we're going to call e-muscle cars.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the trend now. We're hearing about how we're going to be expected to convert our vehicles to electric. Even driving down the Parkway the other day, I noticed supercharger stations at the rest stops. Mm-hmm. So what's going on now? How is this affecting our towns, and how is this affecting our hobby?
I mean, there's so much to unpack here, and we all live here. We all have skin in the game. You and I have kids. We all want a clean environment. So it's important to just keep things based in fact and not in ideology. So what I guess I would start with is the collector car hobby. There's no shortage of literature on this, and you and I have collector vehicles. They're primarily driven in the summer months, especially here in the Northeast. They're maintained statistically better than daily driven vehicles. We put an average of anywhere from 400 to 1,200 miles a year on them. So their impact on the environment is minimal.
That's true.
And we need advocacy for that. So organizations like yours, I encourage everyone to not only write mayors, but write lawmakers. So here in town, it's our 9th district. And depending on where you live in other states, you'll have districts there as well. But these concerns and issues and large organizations like SEMA have to get to governors' desks around the country. And I think in particular, when you talk about the Hellcat, and I certainly don't speak for Stellantis or Dodge, I read literature that comes out of major news websites just like you do and your viewers. But one of the things I'm reading that's troubling is, well, first I talk about CAFE standards, corporate average fuel economy. In 1970, the corporate average fuel economy for vehicles was 12 miles to the gallon. In 2014, that bumped up to over 34 miles to the gallon. That was 7 years ago. Now, I'm sure it's probably up near 37 or 38. That's almost a 70% rise. So to frame the issue without being long-winded, our waste in this country, our emissions, if you will, is some of the most regulated in the world. There's local township oversight, there is county oversight, state oversight, and depending on what you're producing or not producing, federal oversight. So we put somebody on the moon 53 years ago. I know we do things in a proper way insofar as emissions and responsible production in our agriculture and every other thing. But let's talk specifically about Dodge. I've owned a Hellcat. I love the Dodge brand. I've owned a Scat Pack in 2015, a Hellcat in 2020. I love the brand, and it's just a quintessential American brand. Yeah. But what I have heard reported on major news websites is that soon there are these proposed so-called litmus tests for not only automobile makers, but for your own holdings and your retirement account. And what that means is there's going to be groups of governmental bureaucrats, I fear, in the future that look and say, Al, you're holding this company, you drive this particular vehicle, company A makes this particular vehicle, we're talking about Dodge and Stellantis right now. Unless you comply with these fuel economy standards collectively for your whole fleet of vehicles, from your minivans to your Hellcats and your red-eye machines, maybe we will withhold access to your banking. Maybe you are not allowed to keep that holding in your 401k or your mutual fund. That's not pie in the sky. That's a concern of mine because ideologues in Congress at the federal level, they spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about these things. And if I'm a company that produces an automobile, I have to pay hard and close attention to that because that's, my line of credit with my bank and my financial holdings determines on what I bring to the marketplace, how I can do my resource and development, how I can create a product to bring to the marketplace. So
seems like an almost tricky way to force their hand to move to electric vehicles.
I think that's what things are coming to. My concern as a municipal mayor is if we get a mandate down from Trenton to say, hey, you have to, and this is not beyond the pale. This is not out of the realm of thinking. If we get a mandate in the next couple of years that says, hey, you have to put in a charging station, that's fine. But what I can't stand as a mayor is unfunded mandates. If you have a mandate for us to meet a high water mark with specific regard to what you're pushing, this Green New Deal agenda, then fund it. Don't make me as a mayor come to you as a resident and say, pay for a charging station that might be anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million. I don't think that's fair to you.
No, and it seems like that's what's going to happen because as we all know, in 2019, Governor Murphy unveiled his Energy Master Plan, which is almost a 300-page document telling us how we're going to move from fossil fuels to electric. And it's not just automobiles, it's our homes, it's our businesses, it's our entire livelihoods. Now, how's that going to get funded? So that's the biggest question is our taxpayers, are we expected to foot the bill for that? What's going to happen?
Well, the thing that's most concerning to me is, when I govern, if I come out with, and I've come out with very few ordinances or mandates, I want to make sure that I've done my homework and that it's right. Because if I'm going to go to the taxpayer and ask for money, I got to be right. When you look at the Green New Deal language, and you can Google it on any number of federal .gov websites, to me, the language is specifically ambiguous. I mean, it talks about reducing greenhouse gases as much as feasible. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean we have to change the way we do agriculture and produce our food? Does that mean we reduce commercial flights? Does that mean your family's only allowed to own one vehicle or two vehicles if you have a couple of kids? And if you own a collector vehicle, do you now have to pay a carbon tax on it for the 500 or 800 miles statistically that you put on it each year? So I'm concerned not only for the hobby, but for our lives moving forward. I foresee a point in the future where if they mandate some of these things, which is what they want to do, when you sell your house, is it up to quote-unquote Green New Deal codes? Do you have solar panels? If you don't, do you have to install them? The other thing with electric cars that people don't know about, and I want people to fact check me, I'm not coming from any particular, I am a registered Republican. I'm being as fair as possible. I'm not coming from any particular ideology here. Again, when I govern a town, I do it based in knowledge and research. So you talk about some of these things. Some of these technologies aren't even here yet. One of the elected officials I spoke to in the county the other day purchased a new vehicle, don't need to say where. He was given one key fob. He paid $60,000 for the vehicle, but we were told that because of supply chain issues, which is another issue,
right. Chip
shortages and things like that. Now, some of these technologies aren't even here. With all these batteries in these electric cars, when they come to the end of their useful life, there are no recycle facilities right now as we're sitting here today to handle them. Where are they going to go? Are they going to go in a landfill? When you close oil spigots and pipelines, what you do is you enrich our enemies, because now we have to, when we were an energy independent nation a couple of years ago, now we're having to import more. It's not only a loss of American jobs, but I submit to you that it's a national security issue when you drive an electric car. What is not advertised, and I'm about transparency, but what I want you to know this, and I want our viewers to know this, when I say ours, because you and I are, we've known each other, I like what you do for the hobby. I think it's essential to get more young people into the hobby, because guys like me, 53, I'm getting older. But when you buy an electric car, it's not a $50 or $60 registration fee each year. My understanding is it's several $100s, because you're not going to be purchasing gasoline. In gasoline, there's the road tax and the gas tax, which is another issue that we won't talk about now, because my opinion of that is when you pay your registration, it goes by the weight of your vehicle. Therefore, why should you have to pay tolls on a vehicle? Your registration fee, through the weight of that vehicle sitting right there off camera, is what your VIG is when you pay that fee, the wear and tear that it's going to use on the road. So when you buy an electric vehicle, ask the question, folks. Ask, what is the registration going to be on this vehicle? Is it going to be $600, $700, or $800, or is it going to be the $40 or $50 I'm used to paying every year? Do I have to put in and pay an electrician now to put in a 220 outlet in my garage, where all the outlets, unless you pay extra for a 220, you need that to plug a vehicle in. The other thing is range. When you hear these pie-eyed estimates for range, 200, 300, 400 miles, that's not in the ice cold. That's not with the heater or the air conditioning on. That's not with the headlights on. You have to ask these questions. Do I think the technology is going to be there? Yeah, in the future it will be. Do I think it's good for the planet? I do. But I don't think cars and hobbies like ours should be canceled out to do it.
No, not at all. That's one of the things that we've talked about before. Like, we're both classic car owners, and at one time we both had our Trans Ams, and we have here a 1980 turbo Trans Am, which was the first American-made V8 turbo car, and all the money, all the worth and value of that car is in that engine. And if I'm forced to remove the engine of that car and electrify it, the car's got no value anymore. There's nothing special about it anymore. And this is a piece of our history. Not just, it's not New Jersey history, but it's our American transportation history. So why would I want to do that? I mean, I think there's got to be some more regulation and oversight on that. And, people that have these collector's cars, we shouldn't be forced to make these changes.
And the other thing is, can you? I mean, you're talking about thousands of dollars. This is not a cheap endeavor. At the beginning of November, about 5-6 weeks ago from when we're taping here today, I was at the League of Municipalities. There was a vendor down there that sees all this coming, actually has a business that he or she made a substantial investment in, and now converts fleet vehicles for municipalities that are on regular fuel, gas and diesel, to electric. He was talking to me about some of the price points and the labor costs involved. Depending on what type of car collector you are, or what type of enthusiast you are, it could easily exceed the price point of what you paid for the vehicle. Right. And that would relegate this hobby and our history to a 4,500-pound paperweight. This great nation was built. You could make an argument with the transportation industry. When the first interstate was put in the 50s in Pennsylvania, that dramatically expanded opportunities for men, for women. All I have is a daughter. I want to see opportunity for her. It dramatically expanded opportunities and dramatically grew our economy. So this is a deep part of who we are as Americans. We've done this responsibly. Fuel economy has gone up exponentially since 1970, and I'm concerned for the future. What we need is large organizations, SEMA, larger nationally syndicated car clubs, to not just get together on a Saturday in July, but they have to have advocacy coordinators. Maybe they do. I'm not sure, and I'm not being critical. I'm being hopeful. In their chapters, at the local chapter, in their main chapters, wherever their home base is, to talk with and speak with. We're talking about a $43 billion industry by some estimates in our country, with a massive amount of employees from techs to engineers to metal fab people. This is how people put food on the table.
Yeah. I mean, locally here in town, we have a number of fabricators and shops that just do customization and work and, restorations. In fact, one of our cars is down at one of them right now. So, we know how this, affects them as well. The other thing that we've seen too is the push from Washington is by 2030 to have 50% compliance of vehicles to electric, over gasoline. And one of the things we've also seen is neighboring states such as New York are now going around saying, 50% is not good enough. We're going to do 100%. How do we think New Jersey is going to respond to that? Do we think we're going to see, our leaders push for more than 50%, or do we think we're going to be okay with where we're at with, Washington looking at 50% electric vehicles by 2030?
Well, I'm concerned on a number of fronts with that. You bring up a great point. Number one, the technology just isn't there yet. The battery technology just isn't there yet. The charging infrastructure isn't there yet. And let's be clear, there are still a lot of coal-fired plants in this country. When you plug your car in, okay, you're not generating emissions from a tailpipe through a fossil fuel, but you are generating emissions when you plug your car in.
Right.
And your primary source of power is a coal plant. Mm-hmm. And it's fed to your 220 outlet right there through lines indirectly from that plant. So what I want people that govern from, this is the dangerous part, Al, people govern from ideology. They come out of these universities, they're generally speaking under 50, they are governing from an ideological standpoint, and that's great, because that's new thinking, but there's also a cost to it. If you have a plan, part and parcel of the word plan, the verbiage, the definition, is you have to have a way to implement. And what I always say in government is, don't be penny wise and pound foolish. Don't ever cut off your head to stop a nosebleed. We'll get there. But you can't have mandates that are, number one, unfunded. Number two, the technology isn't there yet. The technology will get there because I believe in American exceptionalism. I know you. I know your cars are clean. I know how well we're sitting in a heated garage here that's the envy of a lot of different people, and I applaud you. Worked hard. You earned all this, right? Things don't have to be mutually exclusive. We can titrate our way into this and do it the right way and not malign the old car clubs and the history and our hobby.
What advice would you give to somebody just starting out in this hobby now? We know how those of us that have been in it for a while handle things, but somebody's just getting started and wants to get into our hobby. What would you tell them?
Well, I'd say number one, I'd say, and unfortunately we have to talk about this as we're talking about it now, I would say enjoy it, look up the history. I get a lot of fun. You know what I like doing? I like going on the internet and researching the VIN numbers. I like some of these old Mardia reports or Pontiac Historical Services. Tell me how many units were built. I like to see that it came off the assembly line in December of 1974, or whatever the case may be, and it was one of the last ones built, or one of the first ones built. And it really personalizes the experience, and it goes to value. I mean, when you buy a classic car, ask for the paperwork, because to me, the paperwork is half of the value. There's value in paperwork. Enjoy the history, enjoy the memories with your family. Get your kids, look, we got to improve the bench. There's not many young people in their 20s into this hobby. That's our future. You have very little more to lose than your future. The other thing that's just equally as important today as we're sitting here is you got to be an advocate. Because if we go there and just hang out on a Saturday and have fun with each other, which is what we love to do as part of our bonding, I'm glad to see a lot of women involved in this now. I had mentioned to you at the last show, and the great work you do. We had a Cars and Coffee at Ocean County Mall, and Al deserves all the credit. And there was rows and rows of young kids with Japanese import cars.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great to see. Am I a particular fan of Japanese import? No, I just happen to like American muscle. But it was great to see those young kids there. I call them kids. They're probably people in their 20s because I'm 53.
But we can't scare them away. We have to welcome them into what we do. They have to be a part of it.
Yeah, it was great to see. It was great. Every age group there. We were enjoying coffee. Some people were going to breakfast. We were all exchanging numbers and texts. And there was police and fire there. There was football coaches there, and I think I even saw some Boy Scouts there.
Yeah.
You know, this is a good thing. We want to grow the bench, but when you get into the hobby, you're a caretaker, and not only that vehicle, but now it's important, and I'm sorry to put this responsibility on everybody, but you're a caretaker of our hobby, so you have to advocate. Next time you're at any political function, bring this up. Send an email. If you don't like face-to-face, send an email to your legislative district. Advocate for our hobby so that it's there tomorrow.
Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. I really was happy to have you on our show. We hope you'll come back again. And
you're a friend, you're a personal friend. Your website to educate me every Saturday so that I know where to go for a show. The charity that you're involved with, you're great for the hobby, and thank you for the opportunity to sit down with you here today, my friend.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot, man.
So that's all the time we have for today. We hope you'll check out one of our next upcoming podcasts. We're going to visit with one of our friends, Jerry Brown, and check out his beautiful Volkswagen bus. So don't miss it, and thank you for joining our Garden State Car Culture podcast. Take care.